YouTube, what's going on? How are you guys doing today? It's your boy RogueSpirit back here with another review, and I am so excited to talk about Kingdom Hearts 1. Yeah, you know, my long weekend was actually pretty good. I've just been chilling and hanging out here on Destiny Islands, as you guys can see, and I've just been having a blast hanging out with Sora, Donald, and Goofy, and traveling to all these amazing Disney worlds and, you know, beating these evil Disney villains, upping my level to level 100, just grinding, you know, doing what I usually do best. And man, what a blast it was. Kingdom Hearts 1 is a game that I would never have believed to exist during my lifetime. I am so lucky to have played this game. You know, when I was young, my cousin came down to visit and he went to the local Blockbuster store and rented out the first Kingdom Hearts game. Next day I went to my grandma's house. You know, he was sleeping, so while I was waiting, I booted up the PlayStation 2. And when I first saw the front cover, you know, I was kind of like, Kingdom Hearts, Disney. Ah, man, this game's gonna suck. But then right at the bottom, what do you see? You see the Square Enix logo. And you know, it piqued my curiosity. Just what the hell is Square Enix doing with Disney properties? I don't know. So I opened it up, read the instruction booklet, and I was like, okay, you know what? We're gonna give this one a shot. But yeah, so I put it in the PlayStation 2, started a new save file, and I did not know what the hell was going on, you know, like it was such a different experience. It wasn't something that I was really used to. I wasn't really familiar with what Square Enix was doing on the PlayStation 2. I didn't play Final Fantasy X at this point. I played the older games, the older Square games, but you know, I was always one of those people who were like, oh yeah, the old Square games are the best. I don't really care about the new ones. But damn, I would have missed out on a magical experience if I didn't run into this game. So I gotta thank my cousin for introducing me to this wonderful, fantastic series and for giving me an awesome childhood in that aspect. And if it wasn't for this game, if it wasn't for Kingdom Hearts 1, your boy RogueSpirit would have never have bought a PlayStation 2. I solely remember just buying a PlayStation 2 because of this game. Not because of Final Fantasy X, not because of Sly Cooper, Jack and Dexter, no. It was solely for the Kingdom Hearts experience. And damn, dude, what an experience it was. You know, it was amazing. I loved the game. And honestly, I am so excited to talk about it today. I haven't played this game in a long time. This game is really burned into my memory in here. But yeah, guys, I hope you enjoy this video review. I did my best not to screw it up. And as usual, guys, let's jump right into it. What do you get when you fuse Final Fantasy characters with Disney characters? You get Kingdom Hearts. Directed by Tetsuya Nomura, who started off his career at Square as video game debugger, to then being promoted as the main character and enemy designer of the Final Fantasy games, starting with Final Fantasy IV and up. Tetsuya Nomura would eventually become to be known as a deep storyteller and become a legend when it came to writing and telling stories, which made him a huge deal at Squaresoft. And he is also part responsible for in Final Fantasy VII, as he had a huge influence on the story of Final Fantasy VII and many other Square Enix games, especially the Final Fantasy series. The idea of Kingdom Hearts first started when Nomura-san first heard talks about Square wanting to develop a Mickey Mouse platforming game of sorts between Shinji Hashimoto and Hironobu Sakaguchi, being very influenced by Super Mario 64, a 3D action platformer which shook the gaming landscape back in 1995 and introduced 3D gaming and perfected it on a whole nother level. With a production team of about 100 staff members, which included Square and Disney staff alike, Tetsuya Nomura took on the mantle of directing Kingdom Hearts and put forth one of his very best efforts at storytelling and video game design. And having years of experience with turn-based JRPG games, he mixed platforming elements with the JRPG action mechanics and created one of the best action JRPG adventure game of all time. The plot was very captivating and focused on a group of 3 essential main characters who are growing up and have a desire to leave their home on Destiny Islands in order to broaden their views and travel to many different other worlds in seek of experiencing new adventures and seeing brand new things, as the world that they exist in is just one very small piece compared to whatever worlds that exist out there, just begging to be explored. The main character Sora is very courageous and loves spending time with his friends Riku and Kairi. Riku is very focused on outdoing Sora in order to seek Kairi's approval, and Kairi is the main damsel in distress, but she gets her spot to shine later on in the story. Due to some unforeseen events, Sora is separated from his friends and finds himself exploring new Disney worlds and meeting up with Final Fantasy and Disney characters along the way in order to search for his missing friends, Kairi and Riku. Donald and Goofy, who are in search for their missing king, who has randomly left to gather and collect all of the reports left by Ansem the Wise, who has studied the main bad guys in this game called the Heartless, creatures that are born from the darkness of people's hearts that are lacking a body or a soul. The Heartless are a very neat concept, but going back to why Donald and Goofy join Sora, they basically team up with Sora in order to find their king while Sora searches for his friends. All of the answers and unsolved questions, as well as the key to stopping all of the madness that goes on in the story of Kingdom Hearts, lies within these so-called Ansem reports. Sora is eventually gifted with the mysterious blade known as the Keyblade, and thus earns the title and burden of being a Keyblade Master, which has the hidden abilities to lock and unlock the heart of a world by locking it, which would repel the evil Heartless from traveling to these worlds, enable them to then cause chaos and inflict harm. But if a heart of a world is left to be unlocked, which would then result in that world to succumb to utter darkness, which would eventually make that said world and its inhabitants disappear unless that world is saved by the Keyblade Master, and with this keyhole locked, saving a world from utter disaster. The story in this game is very deep, which heavily focuses on friendship in such a mature manner. People change as they grow up, and sometimes friends fall apart or grow distant and end up walking on their own path, which they believe to be correct, but may eventually regret if they chose the wrong path to walk down. It's a very solid story about friendship and growth by overcoming hard times, and Tetsuya Nomura really goes in deep, and seeing Disney characters partake in this epic story is very heart-clenching and very fun, and stands up above some of the greatest Disney movie stories ever told, and does a fantastic job of mixing both Final Fantasy characters with Disney characters together, which is what makes this game so special. The best part about this game was in fact its story and the surprises that awaited you as you progress through the game. I was constantly wondering what Disney characters or Final Fantasy characters would I run into next, and traversing through these Disney worlds, battling the Heartless, made a very young version of myself rejoice as I gazed at my TV screen in pure shock and amazement. And it's unique that a video game like this actually exists in my lifetime. Platforming across the rooftops of Agrabah, teaming up with Jack Skeleton to put a stop to Oogie Boogie's plans in Halloween Town, practicing and perfecting my magic skills with Merlon the Wizard in the cavern depths of Traverse Town, one of my favorite locations from the very first game, exploring the underwater world of Atlantica with Ariel and meeting King Triton himself, to exploring the bowels of Monstro searching for Pinocchio, gathering solid evidence for the Queen of Cards in Wonderland to free Alice, participating in tournaments to win prizes and become a true hero in Olympus Coliseum, exploring all of the worlds fully to locate all of the 101 Dalmatians. All of the levels which are presented as worlds in this game are fantastic and stay true to their source material, and even running into nostalgic Disney villains from the Disney movies gave me such a pure dopamine rush which I haven't felt since playing Chrono Trigger or Xenogears. This game is my childhood. When traveling to other worlds, Sora and crew have to take control and pilot the Gummy Ship, and during these sections, the game turns into a on-rail shooter style of game similar to Star Fox 64, and I loved it. Upgrading the Gummy Ship so it can fly faster and buying all of the upgrade parts from Sid in Traverse Town to make my Gummy Ship one hell of a beast felt so rewarding, and you can even partake in Gummy Ship missions, although I never really bothered too much for it, but it's a nice little extra touch for those who really enjoy the Gummy Ship sections. As you progress through the story, you eventually get an upgrade for your Gummy Ship which lets you warp to worlds you have already visited, which saves you a lot of time from backtracking. Now let's talk about the battle system in this game. This game is basically a hack and slash game with JRPG elements like leveling up and equipping proper gear in the equipment menu and setting abilities for each of your characters so that they can perform said abilities during battle. You can mash the X button to attack enemies, and as you level up and get stronger, you can do some pretty insane combos, making you feel like a true Keyblade master. Some will argue that this game's battle mechanics are pretty simple and that you just mash the X button most of the time, but that's not entirely true. You will have a tough time if you don't block or counter enemy attacks, and some Heartless you have to maneuver around them to deal damage, which makes the combat system so engaging and fun, especially on the hardest difficulty setting. You also have a magic tab, which when selected selected, you can use magic attacks such as Thunder and Fire and Blizzard, which become upgraded to Firaga, Blizzaga, and Thundaga as you progress through the game and defeat bosses. You can also customize these magic attacks, which allows you to equip your favorite magic spells on a shortcut menu, so you can use them on the fly, which is a godsend, especially when you gotta heal yourself, and use a cure spell. One low point about the battle system that I have to point out, which hasn't aged at all, is the wonky camera controls and the camera itself. The camera follows Sora in whichever direction he faces, and sometimes even glitches out or gets stuck behind a wall, which blocks you from seeing what the hell is exactly going on during the fast-paced action. But still, overall, I love the combat in Kingdom Hearts despite this one flaw. Next, you have the Summon tab, where you can select summons which you have obtained through the Fairy Godmother in Traverse Town, and after beating some of the bosses during the story. Simba is always fun to use, and riding on Dumbbell is so fun, but my favorite is Tinkerbell, because if you die and your health points are dropped to 0, she can revive you once after death, keeping you in the battle against that tough final mix secret boss fight. I love all of the boss fights in this game, although most of them are a cakewalk, besides Dragon Maleficent and Dark Riku, but the gimmicks in these boss fights are pretty cool, and every boss felt different, and you do have to apply a different strategy for each one. Plus, it always feels good banishing Ursula and giving her what she deserves. The graphics still hold up fairly well today, and this is a PlayStation 2 game back in the 2002 era. Now that's amazing. Just shows how Squaresoft at the time knows best when it comes to pushing the hardware on Sony consoles, and in general are still the best at creating in-game cutscenes and current gen graphics till this very day. A big huge shout out to the musical composers for this game, Yoko Shimura and Kaoru Wada. The music in this game is a 10 out of 10 and a masterpiece, and it is no wonder why the Kingdom Hearts music festivals are a thing, and why the Kingdom Hearts fan base and community are so passionate about the music in the Kingdom Hearts series. Some of these tracks in the first Kingdom Hearts game had me, or I mean to say gave me goosebumps, because of how heartwarming and serious it can become, and the theme which accompanies the Disney themed worlds are just icing on the cake. Damn, I cannot understate the music in the Kingdom Hearts series. This stuff is the proper jam right here, and I love it to death. Another big shout out to Utada Hikaru, who sings Simple and Clean and all of the other Kingdom Hearts opening songs. She is the best, and Simple and Clean and Sanctuary are part of my daily workout tracks and in all of my playlists. I love her. No, seriously, Utada Hikaru is one of my top favorite singers of all time. She is amazing, and I cannot stress this enough. If I ever stop doing YouTube videos and something happens to me, please promise me, at my funeral you play Simple and Clean and Sanctuary, and I'll probably pop right back up. April Fools, I know I'm a little late, but I still had to do it. After completing all of the Disney worlds and defeating countless numbers of Heartless and Disney villains, that's when the story really becomes intriguing and very interesting, and in my opinion, sets it apart from the other Kingdom Hearts games. Hollow Bastion is my favorite part of this game. The game switches things up on you and steals away your Keyblade, and Donald and Goofy leave Sora and join up with Riku. But the Beast from the Beauty and the Beast joins your party and helps you out. During this moment, you are offenseless and can't damage the late game enemies. Only Beast can cause them harm and defeat them, and during this moment I was very tense and learned that I quickly had to adapt. This part of the game shows off some key story elements, and to learn that Ansem the Wise, who wrote all of the reports, is the main villain blew my mind as a simple teenager. This part of the game had some amazing boss fights as well. It's during this part of the story that we see Sora go through a lot of character growth, and he learns that he doesn't need the Keyblade in order to fight and protect his friends, as long as he has his heart and his morals, and the courage to fight the darkness with his friends. The Keyblade then returns to him, and now the tables are turned. Be prepared to fight Dark Riku. He is one of the toughest bosses in the whole game, and a mean bad guy. I have to admit that the first Kingdom Hearts is the toughest game in the series. It's the only game where I still die to a boss battle, no matter how many times I replay this game, and this is especially the case on the highest difficulty setting. After beating Hollow Bastion, you are then to head off and stop Ansem the Wise for good. But before you go off and defeat Ansem, you got a lot, and I mean a lot of side quests to complete if you want that 100% completion rate, and to see the final secret ending. This is the Final Mix version that I am playing after all. Final Mix is a complete package and is the only way you should play the first Kingdom Hearts game, and now that it's available on PlayStation 4, this version of the game is more accessible than ever. New content, new cutscenes, and a new secret boss fight against the unknown. There are also extra end-game side bosses to conquer who will give you a tough time, but are super rewarding to take down. You also got the Olympus Coliseum tournaments to participate in, all which have their own secret bosses to defeat, like the Ice Titan or Sephiroth himself. Sephiroth is the hardest side boss to defeat in the game, but he isn't impossible. Just make sure you're leveled up and have the proper stats and abilities and strongest Keyblade equipped, pay attention to his attack pattern, and you'll end up as victor in the end. No problem. On top of all this content, you can also return to each world and collect all of the 101 Dalmatians, which requires you to fully explore all of the worlds completely. You have the Moogle Synthesis shop where you have to obtain materials by again exploring each world fully, and some of these items can be a chore to obtain, as most of them are rare drops which you get by defeating certain enemies, and if you want that Ultima weapon, then you can expect your total playtime to increase by a lot. I admit, I was getting a bit bored searching for all of the synthesis items, but in the end when you obtain that Ultima weapon, damn is it ever worth it. But it's one hell of a grind, and a huge one, so be prepared for that. I wish that the Trinity symbols, which can only be executed if you have just Donald and Goofy in your party, returned in the other games. It's cool and funny watching them unlock a new area or a treasure chest by using teamwork, and it's very charming. There are different kinds to find. You got the blue Trinity symbols, the green ones, and the red ones, and the white ones. Good luck finding them all. While exploring each Disney world, you will eventually run into an item called torn pages. Now these are important as you need them to progress through the 100-acre wood. Exploring Winnie the Pooh's world is fun, and you have to participate in mini games in order to progress, which are pretty easy and tons of fun to participate in. I have to be honest, I was pretty shocked running into Pooh Bear during my first playthrough of this game. It's also cool interacting with Tigger and Roo and Owl and Eeyore, as well as the rest of the gang. And the calming classic music theme which accompanies the stage was nostalgic to listen to. Plus you need to complete this world anyways to get the secret ending and 100% the game. You can access the 100-acre wood by visiting Merlin's study in Traverse Town and examining the book itself. I completed everything in this game and it took me about 40 hours in total, but if you're a newcomer, then expect to have about 50 to 60 or more hours. This is a huge game, and yeah, the game feels shorter to me now as I am experienced and have been a Kingdom Hearts fan for a very long time, and I knew what to do in order to progress the story. But if this is your very first Kingdom Hearts game, yo dude, be prepared to get lost and confused as you explore each of the wonderful Disney themed worlds. The very first Kingdom Hearts game is always going to be the best game for me in the series, as it was the very first Kingdom Hearts game that I played back in 2004. Couple years after it released, and if it wasn't for my cousin visiting and renting this game at the local Blockbuster store, then I most likely wouldn't have ever bought a PS2 and played through this amazing cult classic. Hell of a game, with one amazing hell of a gripping story created by the true masters of masters, Tetsuya Nomura himself, and a stellar, timeless, fantastical musical score, and a fantastic series of video game soundtracks, which hasn't aged a day, composed by composers Yoko Shimura and Kora Wada, and the fantastic, simple and clean singer Utada Hikaru, also accompanied by amazing Disney-themed levels and tracks, which you will hum along as you explore and whack the Heartless with their magical Keyblade. Combined with the slick combat system which was ahead of its time in the PS2 era, Kingdom Hearts 1 simply cannot be missed by any gamers worldwide, and no matter what type of video games you are into, give the first game a shot and I promise you, it will be very hard to not want to beat this fantastic video game, trust me on that. Sure, the wonky, glitchy camera controls haven't aged well, but that's a very minor flaw, and for all of these reasons alone, I'm giving Kingdom Hearts 1 a score of 9.5 out of 10, an absolute must play.
But why?
Well, that's about all the time I have for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed this video game review, and be sure to check out my other video game reviews as well if you like this one. And don't forget to like and subscribe, it helps my channel out a lot. And yeah, other than that, stay awesome everybody, and stay safe out there, and I will catch you guys next time on RogueSpirit Reviews. Peace out. Man, this one was a really long one. Peace out everybody, much love and take care.